Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors. Wherever you are in the world, I do hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 74, where I had the pleasure of having Rabbi Dovid M. Cohen on the podcast. He is a senior relationship officer as well as a director of Yachad. My apologies if I've got that wrong. We had a very interesting conversation. He also told me the story of how he met his wife as well. I've got to say, a very interesting chap, very entertaining, a very entertaining conversation. And yeah, I look forward to speaking with him again in the future. But please sit back, enjoy the podcast, and yeah, have a great day. Please. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 74, and I have the immense pleasure today to have Rabbi Dovid Cohen. You see, I messed up. I got the first part right, and I got the last name wrong. My apologies. My apologies, Rabbi Dovid Cohen.
No problem. I
How?
can tell you a quick story. I once had the opportunity in the United States Congress to give the opening benediction, and also John Boner was I forgot the position, like the speaker at the time.
Yeah.
And he gets up there and he starts reading the paper. He goes, "I'd like to welcome Rabbi Dovid," like because he never heard of it. Usually it's David. I get that all the time. Is that a mistake? Is that a typo? So it's my Hebrew name is David with an O, and my English name is David with an A, which more people are familiar with.
Yes.
But either one is fine. I'm cool with both.
Hey, what can I say? Yes, there was there was a king of Jerusalem who had the good old name of David, had a little spat with a not so tiny man, but you know what I mean, how it goes. Yeah. I'd like to say thank you for coming on today. It is an immense pleasure to have you here. From looking at the information and your notes and everything like this, you're a very interesting cat, I've got to say. Before I get into what you do now, you went to Columbia, right?
I went to law school back in the day, yes, when I was much younger.
Okay, so you went to law school and then in New York, and then what possessed you to go all the way to Dallas, Texas, to continue your studies in something?
So it's actually a little bit deceptive. It's even worse than that because I actually was in Jerusalem in Israel for a number of years studying, and there was, I guess, like a joint program between an institution in Israel and the University of North Texas. So I've been to Texas, but I never actually have been on campus where I got my degree because I did it basically via correspondence.
That is one heck of a commute, to say the least.
Yeah.
So why did you change from law to what you were doing now?
So it's a great question. Growing up, I was always, I guess, argumentative, you would say, or I enjoyed kind of proving points. And the natural flow, certainly growing up in the 70s and 80s when I grew up, the secure professions that people were encouraged to pursue were certainly medical field, legal profession. Things have changed tremendously since that time. But certainly when I was growing up, that was a lot of the shows on TV were about the legal profession. LA Law was a show that I grew up watching. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. But in essence, I had an affinity for the law. As I grew older and I went to study in college and undergrad, I studied in a place called Yeshiva University, which has both Jewish studies and secular studies. And I studied the Talmud daily, which is a book that is very also rigorous in the sense of argumentative and legal analysis. So that was a part of me and something that spoke to me. At the same time, after spending a number of years studying in Jerusalem, studying in Israel, so I was inspired to kind of have a more spiritual pursuit. So I was actually dual tracking it. I was doing the track to become a rabbi. I was also doing the track to be a lawyer, to kind of have a backup, or to see if that, just to kind of have a livelihood. And I was kind of pursuing those dual tracks. And then at a later juncture, I got more psychologically inclined. And then I went to supplement all of that with a psychology degree as well.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense, because this is the thing. As I say, as I was reading your notes, you met your wife in Israel. I was wondering how you managed to fit that, like going to North Texas and meeting your wife like in Israel. I was like a little bit confused. How did that happen? Because it involved a third party. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, look, you did your homework. I appreciate that. So I was actually at that juncture of my life. I was in my early 30s, and I was working at a prestigious big Manhattan law firm. And as was my tradition, I took vacation basically during the high holiday period on the Jewish calendar, which is upcoming, which is basically in September. I would take the 10-day period from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur. And I would always, it's a spiritual time. It's a time to spend time in synagogue, to introspect. And I didn't want to be distracted with work in that period. And I would often actually go to Israel on vacation, and even go back to the institution I studied in when I was a bit younger, and kind of reconnect with my roots. On one of these trips, I was fortunate enough to visit a friend who suggested my wife, who was really out of the box for me. My wife grew up in Vienna, Austria. Frankly, I had never heard of, I mean, you're from Europe, you know a little bit better, but I was like American boy, didn't know much about where Austria was exactly on the map. I mean, I'm confessing my ignorance of geography, but I was like, Vienna, like Austria, Australia, like I didn't know, people often confuse. I was kind of like, all right, like, sounds interesting. Let's meet. We'll see. And things took off from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you didn't say that to her face when you first met her. Because...
No, I'm polite. I'm a polite guy.
So you just met her there. I thought there was a taxi driver involved, but that was another.
Yeah. Okay, good. So there's a lot more to the story. I spent in my religion. So guys, girls, they tend to get married relatively young. Early 20s is already a time when matchmaking is going on. There's a focus, at least within the Orthodox sect, or a certain aspect of it, which I grew up in. And for me, it wasn't going. It wasn't flowing. It wasn't going as easy as I had hoped. And I actually went to the Western Wall, what we call the Kotel HaMa'aravi, the Western Wall, in Hebrew, the Kotel. I went there to pray the day after Rosh Hashanah, the day after one of the holiest days in the Jewish calendar. I went there to basically beseech God and to cry and say, look, I've been trying to find a wife for 10 years now. It's been taking a really long time. It's been a real struggle. Please help me. And I spent some significant time reciting Psalms by the wall. And then as I was leaving the wall, a taxi driver kind of came down the hill there where they pick up people outside the Western Wall. And he gets in the car and he says to me, I get in the car, he says, why do you look so unhappy? He goes, why do you look so sad? And I started telling this strange taxi driver, I'm trying to get married and etc. And he says to me on the spot, he says, come with me. There's a place in northern Israel. It's called Amuka. It means like in the depths. It's actually a burial place of one of the great rabbinic scholars of days of yore. He said, let's go. Let's drive 3.5 hours right now on the spot. And let's pray over there. It's very auspicious for finding a wife. And we did that. We were spontaneous. Upon his urging, I said, what the heck? Like, why not take a chance? Why not do this? I've never done this before. And I met my wife actually the very next day. So that miraculous prayer experience was kind of the conduit, or the opening to my meeting my wife, and my life being transformed dramatically.
Right. Like, it sounds like, and like that's from our brief conversation, a huge assumption on my part here. It sounds like you were a straight and narrow type person. Like you would go through like regular steps, and you wouldn't not a sort of real big chance taker. Was that sort of the first time when you went, okay, I'm gonna take this leap of faith with you, go for the prayer, and that sort of kicked things off? Because it seems like law firm and then like a realm of change came for you. Am I wrong?
It's interesting. I was on another podcast recently, and somebody asked me, made a similar observation. I think that in recent years, I have become a lot more adventurous or a lot more curious or a lot more interested in being out of the box. But I think you're right. I think in my earlier years, I was a little bit more on the straight and narrow, kind of like not looking to do things that were kind of so esoteric or kind of off the beaten track. And yeah, it wasn't natural for me to say, hey, let's go do that. That wasn't the taxi driver had to like prod and push and cajole and inspire and motivate. And finally I agreed to go. So yeah, at that juncture of my life, about 20 years ago, that wasn't my natural inclination. So that's a very good observation.
I have them every now and then, once in a blue moon, as they say.
Okay.
Yeah. So after meeting your wife, like you're still, I imagine, still working at the law firm, like pushing I don't know, long hours, hopefully short hours, like a 8-hour day, and then you're back home, or like 14. But still, what sort of like made you go from law to what you're doing now? I imagine there's many steps along the way.
There definitely are steps. Interestingly, so my grandfather was a communal rabbi, and he also was a fundraiser, and he devoted himself to improving the world, helping people in our community, helping people beyond our community. And he was an inspirational figure in my life. And the years I worked in law, which were about 4, I didn't find particular meaning in the work. It was a job, it paid nicely, but I didn't find it to be particularly inspiring, or shall we say a higher calling. And I always was kind of hoping or aspiring for the opportunity or for the pivot to be able to transition more into not-for-profit or communal work in those years. And I had in my mind, I needed to kind of get married, kind of get settled down, to be taken seriously as a communal leader. I felt that it would make sense. It's usually like a tag team. It's like the couple represents the community. The couple serves the community. It's not just an individual. So I had in my mind that as soon as I met my wife, I was going to begin to pivot and take the steps toward a different career. Interestingly, as the relationship developed with my wife, long distance, because as you said, I came back to my law firm. She stayed in Israel. We were dating long distance. It was a time where technology isn't what it is today. Like, we weren't able to just kind of Zoom or see each other face to face as easily as we are now, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, kind of dating myself. So when we decided we were going to get married, my wife really wanted to start married life in Israel. And I also was very amenable to that, just begin on that spiritual, inspirational plane. So I left my job. I actually left my job a month before we got married. And I went back to study what we call yeshiva. I went back to study in a Jewish seminary for a number of years in my early 30s as a preparation to transition from the legal profession to being a communal rabbi. Thankfully, I had saved up some money over the years that I worked as an attorney, and we were able to kind of live off those funds for about 3 years, the first initial years of our marriage. And in that phase, I was mentally preparing myself, studying, getting a degree in psychology, which is helpful in terms of dealing with members of a congregation, members of a community. And that began the pivot and transition. And we also began to look for positions that we would be able to assume when we returned to the States after that period.
Like, this is a thing. When I hear rabbi, I think of spiritual leader, but like basically akin to like either a vicar or a priest. Is it that sort of, is it a simple comparison like that, or is it something a little bit more complicated? Because I think people hear rabbi and they think it's that, and they might be completely wrong, like I might be.
I don't know. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know that many priests. I don't know that many spiritual leaders of other faiths or other denominations. I have great respect for all people that devote their life to helping mankind, but it's hard for me to say exactly. I don't know. I'd imagine there are a lot of similarities. I'd imagine there are probably some nuances or differences, but in the sense that, to the degree that I've been a full-time rabbi at different stages of my career. Now I'm more of a part-time rabbi, and I do other things with the majority of my time. But a person who is a spiritual leader, so if they have a formal congregation, which I do have a small one,
Mm.
Currently, I've had larger ones previously. So yeah, you go to services every single day, 3 times a day. You're there, you're a presence, you interact with the people, you teach the Bible, you teach the Torah. During the week, you give classes, you're available for people who need counsel, who need advice, who need guidance. Just yesterday, I had a number of meetings. One young man who was deciding if he's going to move forward with a girl that he's dating, asking for advice, for guidance. Another person who is deciding what he should do with his child next year, private school, public school. Again, people come to you, they'll confide in you with their problems, they sometimes think you have more wisdom than you do, but I have some life experience, and you try to listen. Try to really listen to what people are saying and try to guide them and give them insight. There's a lot of teaching and there's a lot of mentoring, and I would assume that any spiritual leader in whatever denomination he or she may function in serve in a similar capacity.
No, I imagine talking to your local community, basically the people of your flock, of your group, how can I say, particularly interesting with the current times we're living in with regards to lockdown, like COVID madness, like put this way, New York you had a very sticky time of it, let's just say. Yeah. So like you mentioned, a guy's looking to like maybe move to that next stage in marriage with like his current lady. How's it been sort of affecting your community out there?
It's an important question. I was actually, as I was sharing my role, so I was thinking of that, and I'm glad you brought us to that point. I've been quoting recently when I've spoken to people a great quote, which is, I think that abnormal behavior and abnormal circumstances is perfectly normal. Okay, it's an important principle and concept, and I think that like naturally people are going to respond to tragedy, to challenge very differently. Last night I was with a group of people on Zoom. We were talking, some people are killing it financially, or doing better than ever right now. Some people have lost jobs and are struggling, small business owners, etc. It's a complicated time, and there's a myriad of emotions, and different people are experiencing things very, very differently. And frankly, as a communal leader, it's been a very, very challenging time in the sense that the flock isn't together. People are very spread out. Now that we've been welcomed back into our houses of worship and we are legally allowed to come back, it's been a slow process. Older members are not running to come back so quickly, understandably so and justifiably so. Younger members are frustrated by the restrictions that we have in place in terms of wearing masks, social distancing. It's really hard to please all the people all the time. And as the rabbi, you're kind of caught in between. And here you are, you think you're a good guy. You're just trying to do what's right and what's best for the community, for the most possible people. You can't please everybody, but sometimes you feel like you can't please anybody, and it's a difficult time. And I've had to strengthen myself emotionally and not take things personally, and to understand that there's a lot of complexity going on in the world right now, more than many of us have ever seen in our relatively young lifetimes. And one has to be sensitive and just kind of take it day by day and see where this takes us. We're not out of the woods by any stretch, and it's just it's a long process. It's a long haul.
Yeah, as you say, it is a long haul. And with regards to members of your community, communities around the world, I've noticed how my next door neighbors, they've got 2 small kids, and how they're dealing with it. They're sort of balls of energy going around and trying to herd their 2 cats, and it makes me smile from time to time when I hear like little man next door giving it all the energy he can with all the enthusiasm he brings. I also do think about people who do have kids who might not be who may be physically challenged in some way, because with that, there's many of the sort of social support, it has been taken away from them, because parents can only do so much. And if there's a particular teacher, therapist, or some other friends who are going through that same thing, it is that sort of sense of isolation must be that much harder. Well, it's hard for all of us, but it must feel even more so as well.
So it's a great point. I'll speak from a very personal note. So you may or may not know that I have 5 children. I'm blessed with 5 children. My eldest son, his name is Yedidya, is 15 years old. He has Down syndrome. He's a developmentally disabled young man. And he's a great kid, and he's a very high functioning kid, very, very with it kid. He was thrilled during the pandemic because he, instead of having to kind of schlep or take these long trips every day to his special school, which is located in Brooklyn, which can be about an hour ride from where we live if there's traffic when he travels. So he basically got to just basically hole himself up in his bedroom with his tablet, with his Zoom, and he did school on Zoom for 3-4 months. So he was ecstatic with that opportunity because he loves watching videos, and he was a little bit of a clown. He was like, we'd catch him many times in the middle of school watching, he loves watching wrestling and all these different things that he wasn't doing. He was a kid in a candy store. He could access whatever he wanted in the middle of class. But just to your point, which is in terms of the services or the support, so there was an opportunity that evolved literally like early July, an opportunity. He was supposed to go to he goes every summer to a special needs sleepaway camp, which is affiliated with an organization that I work for. And he looked forward to that, and it's great for everybody, and particularly for him to have social integration and to be part of that environment is really excellent for his development. And unfortunately, all those programs that my organization runs had to be canceled because of COVID. And we thought he was going to be home all summer. There were going to be programs for him locally, but there was this opportunity to send him away for 5 weeks to a makeshift, I can't call it sleepaway camp because those were illegal, but something in a hotel or some sort of program, special tailored program that was permissible under the law. And we didn't really know the people that were running the program. My son didn't know any of the other participants, and he was frankly very anxious about going, and he was more than happy to stay in his room. But my wife felt very strongly, this is not healthy for him to be socially cooped up for so long without any human interaction besides our family. And she encouraged him and coaxed him to go, and it's worked out beautifully. So it's a great example of adaptability and people putting together programs kind of on the fly that have been transformative, that have really met needs. And that's something that my organization as well, we're called Yachad, and it's a Hebrew word for means togetherness. And we predominantly service the special needs community in the United States of America, in North America, and in Israel. We don't have any chapters yet in Great Britain or in Europe, but we should. But I'm sure there are many resources as well, across the world, similar organizations that do great things. But we've been adapting. It's really been a lot of adapting, a lot of using technology, and we're thriving, although it's been a challenge. But thankfully, we've been able to do it.
Yeah, like this is the thing. One of the things, like I used to do a pilgrimage over to the States each year, working in summer camps. So when you say like sleepaway camps are like closed, you might know this organization as being a New Yorker, the Fresh Air Fund. Have you heard of it?
Not familiar with it, but I'll look it up for sure.
Yeah, basically they've got like 5 camps up in the Fishkill area, just south of Poughkeepsie. So like I was like a camp counselor / village leader there, and like this is the thing. Until you mentioned that, I forgot completely about how this most really has affected summer camps, like them being shut. Doing a sleepaway camp in a hotel, that's definitely a new wrinkle I've ever heard, because you know what I mean. You got to adapt to the times you're in.
Yeah, I don't know myself how they're pulling that off exactly or what it looks like, but I do know the first day or two he was calling us every minute to come home, and I know that now he doesn't want to come home. So I take that as a great sign.
Okay, great. How many weeks is he into the camp right now?
So I think he's been there now for about 3-4 weeks already, it feels like, and I think he's got another 2 to go.
Okay. Dear me. Like I'm sure you're looking forward to all the arts and crafts he's going to bring back in droves.
Maybe wood shop, or they definitely do some vocational training, skill building. So yeah, I'm sure he'll bring home some goodies, but mostly we're just looking forward to seeing him. My daughter also was actually in a sleepaway camp in Pennsylvania because there weren't restrictions in Pennsylvania like there were in New York. So thankfully, and it should continue, that the kids have remained healthy. The camps have, thankfully, COVID is rampaging apparently through the Midwest and the western parts of the United States. But the eastern front, we got hit early. Seemingly, it subsided a little bit, and we'll hope it doesn't come back. We'll see. We're certainly we're being vigilant. We're keeping our eyes on it, but we'll see how things play out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the thing with the sort of second stage where things are partly unlocked, being taken off of lockdown, and some things are on lockdown. I think that's the weird thing I find about it right now, because in the UK as well, some areas have had more restrictions taken off, and some areas have had more restrictions put on it. And when you can't, I imagine you can't go to a sleepaway camp in New York, from what you've been saying, but to go just down to Pennsylvania, and it's all good. It's like, welcome.
Yeah, it's highly politically charged, because these are states that border on each other, and why there are different rules for different places. It's been very, very confusing. It's been very confusing. It is what it is. You just go with it. Yeah, it's confusing.
So you got 2 kids out there, and the other 3, are they just chilling at home, just rocking out, just like, hey, it's all about iPads, watch Netflix, and just chilling out?
So thankfully, they're also everybody's out of the house during the day. The other 3 little ones are in day camps, local day camps. So everybody's keeping busy, which is good for them. The kids were cooped up at home for months because school was canceled. It wouldn't have been healthy for them to have to spend the entire summer at home. We were preparing. So my wife ordered an above ground swimming pool from China, because there was a run on swimming pools, because everybody thought they were going to be stuck with their kids at home all summer. So we were able to get a affordable one from China. But at the end of the day, the kids were able to go to day camps. So thankfully, the day camp was actually in my synagogue around the corner. So I've been hanging out at home as opposed to in my office, because there's a lot of little kids running around outside my office at least till about 3:00, and my house is perfectly quiet. There's nobody here, so it's perfect.
Yeah, if you went to the synagogue, your children will find you.
They do. They hang on the windows. They knock on the door. It's a lot of energy. Thankfully, it's nice.
Liking it a lot. So, what about you and your wife? What have you guys been doing, keeping yourselves busy and amused through lockdown?
So that's a good question. My wife is a medical professional. She's a midwife, so she delivers babies. She's part of a private practice in Queens, which is an area, part of Manhattan, not far from where we live, about 25 minutes from where we live. In the heart of the pandemic, her office was open, but they had no business. There was no patients coming in for a time. It was really frightening. She'd sit around basically at work. 1 or 2 patients would come in a day. It was really, really slow. I mean, she was very, very frightened. She just started working there in January, so it was nerve-wracking. Thankfully, things have opened up, and now she's too busy. Now it's 25, 30 patients a day. Yeah. So she worked throughout, and she definitely felt there was definitely a need for frontline medical professionals. And she had come from she was a pediatric ICU nurse in NYU Langone in Manhattan for a number of years. And she was kind of I think a lot of medical professionals were torn in terms of stepping up or volunteering in the heart of the pandemic. At the end of the day, she didn't end up going back to that. She stayed with what she's doing right now, which she's very passionate about and she's great at. So she's very focused on her medical, her practice and unfortunately she wasn't able to go into the hospital and deliver. She's doing a lot of office work because there were limitations on who can go into the hospital in the heat of in the heart of the pandemic as well. So things are slowly evolving. She's able to go back to the hospital now to do rounds and things like that. And I've been very busy doing an array of different things. I mean, just besides my relationship building and fundraising for my organization and staying in touch, a lot of our donors obviously have had setbacks financially. So fundraising is not what has been traditionally, but now more than ever, it's important to strengthen those ties, be there for the people that have been there for us. So there's a lot of that. There's tending to the flock in terms of the various needs that people have had, financial and otherwise. I mean, literally when the pandemic hit, I mean, we were bringing food to people who weren't able to leave their homes, and financial support for the fest. It was right before the festival of Passover. There are a lot of extra expenses that come with that, and people were not in a position to be able to meet those expenses. So there was raising funds to help with those projects. And I've been busy. I've been trying to make daily videos just to give people insight, guidance. I'd like to make one of those after we get off the podcast as well. I have some food for thought, and trying to write a second book. It's coming slower than I had thought, but I am working on that. I have my own regimen of classes that I teach daily. I've been doing over Zoom and over phone and preparing for that, and strengthening my relationships with my wife and kids. It's really been an opportunity to spend more time with them, which has been very enjoyable and very beautiful. It's been a little frustrating, like being cooped up and not being able to kind of get out. It's been nice in the last month or so to be able to go to a restaurant, sit outdoors, begin to normalize and get back into the flow of life. I was a big traveler before. I mentioned offline, like I was at Wimbledon 2 years ago. Like I used to love kind of traveling and speaking and doing things like that. That's obviously curtailed at the moment. But we have to adapt and do the best we can, and just definitely keeping busy. Not playing some golf. Hopefully going to play some golf this week. So I like to get out, working on I have a driving range of 2 minutes from my house. I've been working on my game a little bit. I haven't been playing. I only played 2 rounds so far this summer, but I've been working on my strokes so that when I do get onto the course, hopefully that improvement will show. So been keeping busy with different things.
I see. So is golf your sort of Achilles heel of sport? Like every guy's got one, trust me.
Well, growing up, I'm a big basketball player. I love sports. As I get older, the body doesn't work the way I used to. So golf is a relatively, it can hurt my back swinging if I overswing, but it's relatively tame in terms of injury. So I try to stay away from the more rigorous sports at this point. I'm supposed to play some tennis today, but we have a tornado warning here, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But trying to get back into tennis a little bit.
Yeah.
And golf, those are definitely sports I appreciate at this stage of life.
No, a tornado warning in New York.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know what's going on here. It's on the coast, Florida, the Carolinas, but I think it's actually here also today. It's supposed to start. It hasn't started raining yet, but there is a tornado. There is a tornado warning in effect. I think for New York City, which is not terribly far from here. So we'll see how that plays out.
Okay, that is weird. I've never heard that, but okay. No.
Well, in London, you guys get rain all the time. You know about rain in London.
Look, I know about rain in London. Don't say that too loud. It's blue skies with white fluffy clouds. Don't jinx this right now.
It should continue.
So answer me this: Who was your basketball team, or who is your basketball team at this present time?
It's interesting. I'm a New York guy, but for basketball, I never really was a Knicks fan, interestingly enough. In other sports, actually in football also not really. I'm like eclectic. I like the teams that I like, generally speaking. So in basketball, I'm a front runner. Like I like the Chicago Bulls in the 80s, early 90s, Michael Jordan. I always like the best player. Right now, I think I like the Golden State Warriors when they have their run. I like good basketball, and I like teams that are entertaining and great. So I'm not a fan of X or Y. I'm a fan of the sport. I'm a fan of the game. Right now, I like the Clippers, actually. I'm a big Kawhi Leonard fan. Oh. I think Kawhi is an awesome player, and I'd love to see him win 3 championships with 3 different teams. I think that would be really unique in the history of basketball. I know people went to LeBron, the Lakers. It doesn't speak to me so much. I'm much more of a I like James Harden. I like the Rockets a little bit too. I like the Sixers, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. I know I like basketball. I like good teams. I don't really have a team. I just like the sport.
Okay. So it's going to be definitely a busy section for you over the next few weeks.
Not all rabbis are as well versed in basketball as I am. So I just I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah.
Look, Matt, what I've got to say is, if it helps you get through your day to day, it helps you get through your day to day.
You do you. That's a big. I like to use that a lot. You do you. So whatever works, that's what works exactly.
But if it's a case of Daddy's watching the game right now, sit down with me, kids. That's like great. I'm liking that.
So it's one of the ways I really connected with my kids. My father connected with me through sports.
Hmm.
He kind of brought me into playing golf. We used to watch games together. We'd go to games together. And I've been really able to, my kids love sports. And every morning I wake up, they're like giving me the updates, like what happened, like last night, like this guy hit 3 home runs, or, you know, they're very into it. It's cute to watch them kind of get a lot of joy out of it.
Outstanding. So what is your handicap in golf? Or is it?
I don't really have an official handicap. On a really good day, I can shoot probably in the low to mid 90s, which is a pretty average golfer. It's nothing to write home about, but I'm respectable. I mean, I can play like 9 holes. Like I can play a back 9 bogey golf if I'm really feeling it. So like, you know, I have my ups and downs, you know.
Yeah. Like the only time I ever got a hole in one was on Tiger Woods, like, yeah, on Xbox. That's the only time.
Okay.
Yeah, I had this guy who was a master spinner. Like, I did the whole perfect swing. I don't know if you played Tiger Woods, like, but they do the whole where they sort of do the Happy Madison, where he kind of runs up.
Wow.
And like,
Cool. Okay. I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but actually a couple weeks ago I was playing with a friend of mine in his club nearby, and we got to a certain hole, and he says to me, last year I got a hole in one on this hole. He's a pretty good golfer. I was like, wow, you got a hole in one? And like people were there to see it. He's like, yeah. He actually made like a celebratory like meal in his community to celebrate his hole in one. So hole in one's a big deal. Even if you get it on Xbox, it's still a big deal. Cool.
Yeah, I was all smiles, happy, like spin it back, hit the grass, and then like I had to put all the spin to get it to come back on itself. Got the whole run, and like, yeah, I think my neighbors hated me because I was screaming and shouting around about 12 o'clock at night, going, yes! So yeah, that was my fun bit.
I think that could be, that's like a cool thing to aspire toward, I think, in the realm of golf. I'd like to get a hole in one in my lifetime. I think I would need to play more, I think, but I don't have enough time to play so frequently, but I think I can get lucky, like one shot, like in a lifetime. I think it could happen. I think so. I'll try to do that.
Yeah, just get out there, like get a few more practices in, like before you know it. I'm sure I'll get an email from you with a picture that's like, I did it.
Yeah, for sure. If that happens, wow, okay, that'd be exciting.
Brilliant. You mentioned your book, the one you did in 2016. We're almost there. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So in 2016, I published my first book. It's called We're Almost There, Living with Patience, Perseverance, and Purpose. It's available on Amazon, on my website. And it was motivated or inspired by dealing with life's challenges. As I mentioned earlier, I got married in my early 30s, which was relatively late for my community and for what I had wanted. My first child was born with a disability, which was a major shock and a major challenge. We talked a little bit about different career transitions, but certainly I struggled to find my footing professionally at different times. And my experience was one of feeling like I'm almost there, like I'm trying to get somewhere and I just can't quite get there. And living with the patience, the perseverance, and the focus or the purpose to reach my goals, to get there. Now, when I named the book, We're Almost There, it didn't dawn upon me that in conversation, people always say, we're almost there, we're almost there, we're almost there. So it's kind of like it's a catchy title in the sense that it's something that we all say, maybe even a number of times a day, we don't even realize it, because we're all trying to get places. Life is about advancing, but it's also about the process. Yeah. And what I was able to teach through my book is that you have to hold the vision, but you have to trust the process. And at the end of the day, it's not always about the destinations. It's actually about the experiences you have in trying to get to the destination. That sometimes can be much more successful or satisfying or gratifying than the actual destination itself, and to change our focus. So I'm trying to work on part 2, which is going to be an extension of I mean, I don't want to give away too much because I really haven't talked about it publicly, but the idea a little bit is going to be maybe to call it We're Still Here. Like volume 1 is We're Almost There. Yeah. And volume 2 is going to maybe be We're Still Here. Meaning that, and maybe focus more on that aspect of it, that it's not really even about trying to get there. It's about being being present and being here. And in the book, I talk about my challenges finding a spouse, and I give a lot of guidance for people who are in early years of marriage, advice in terms of how to solidify their relationships. And that's a lot of the therapy work that I do. Now I do it, online via Zoom.
Yeah.
Although yesterday I actually had my first in-person client for the first time in a long time. But it's this idea of kind of helping people communicate and strengthen their relationships, and parenting guidance in terms of raising a child with a disability, and dealing with questions of faith and challenges. Is always throughout history been all different types of challenges, and COVID is another one of them. It's far-reaching, and everybody's impacted by it, but it certainly fits into a lot of the principles that I talk about in terms of strengthening faith in moments of challenge. So, and I find writing very therapeutic, and the challenge is kind of carving out the time to kind of really sharpen my thoughts and my thinking. I've been writing a lot about the pandemic in recent months, just putting out articles, different things like that. But I'd like to kind of round this out over the next month or two and begin kind of putting together a concept. I don't think the second book will be ready for probably a good year, but it's something that I'd like to kind of finish off. I don't think that I think the first book was meaty, and there's a lot there, but I think there's more to it as well. So that's the process that we're engaged in.
I like this is the thing, like getting to it, and a year away. Like this is the thing, a year, as we all know, flies by. So I think it'll be a case of you blink and it's here. One of the things I also find interesting, like when you go, we're almost there. Like it's all like when people like I've got this destination or goal in life. I often find there are sometimes it's powerful to have a goal. It's powerful to have a target. This is the dream I want to achieve. But I also think it's sometimes very powerful to know when to be able to pivot to like maybe something new, because I think people sort of get so caught up with that's my dream, that's my goal, need to meet this target. But being able to go, wait a second, I'm going towards that, but wait, through life and circumstances, there's this now. Should I go for that or should I pivot? And people who know when to pivot, I think they have a sort of a unique superpower at times.
I think Amiwa, I think that's a great insight. And I think particularly in the times we're living, so many people are pivoting in their businesses, pivoting in their personal lives. And an awareness that we're always evolving and we're not locked in to any one thing. Just in my own experience, I always thought I was going to be a full-time pulpit communal rabbi. And I was for a while, but then different things happened, and God kind of directed me or guided me into other areas that I have found very fulfilling. Areas of entrepreneurship, areas that have to do with relationship building outside of a limited community, getting involved with podcasting, which is something that I've recently been involved with as well, both guesting and having my own podcast. And it's very rewarding to kind of just, we're all complex people who have a lot of different interests, but we have to give ourselves the opportunity to really know ourselves and admit that we like to do different things, and to have the courage to explore them and not to lock ourselves in or not to be narrow. Or, that's what we talked about earlier in this discussion about kind of how I was when I was younger versus how I am now, when we were talking about meeting my wife and kind of going out of the box with that trip with the taxi driver. I think it's a theme that I think can help people in these challenging times. No matter how old you are, a person has to believe in their abilities and believe that, we live in a world of information. You can basically access anything, any career online, watch YouTube videos, you can learn a tremendous amount about anything, for free. And it's all you have to do is have a little time and persistence and interest. But I found in later years, in recent years, that there's a lot of areas of things that really interest me and give me joy that, I can learn I can learn about, and I can spend the time and I can get involved in different things. And it's very rewarding. I encourage everybody to do that.
Yeah. So you mentioned the podcast. What drew you into the sort of world of doing podcasting?
So, okay, I like to hear myself talk. Like that's like a flaw of a lot of rabbis. We think we have what to say, and we like to hear our voices. I say that partially facetiously, but partially not. I always thought it'd be cool to have like a radio program and I like to interview people. I like you're doing a great job. Really, I'm very impressed. And I like to get to know people, particularly people that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a strategy that I'm waiting to see how it kind of plays out, being that I have an obligation and I have a burden to raise significant funds for a not-for-profit. So I thought it could be kind of a cool tool to get to know philanthropists and to kind of build relationships with them through interviewing them on my podcast. What I didn't account for was that not every major philanthropist in the world is dying to be interviewed by Rabbi Dovid Cohen, or at least not yet. So I'm working on that, but the vision for it was really a medium where I could introduce philanthropists to the world, get to know them a little better, but at the same time enable me kind of an in. Sometimes you can't get through the door with these people. So I thought it'd be kind of a cool opportunity to build relationships with them and to get to know them and like giving me some credibility. They know who I am, so that I can then follow up and hopefully give them the privilege and opportunity to be involved in the good work that we do as an organization. So that was part of it. It's kind of taken, like we're talking about pivots, like I've only had about 20 episodes so far, and it kind of zigs and zags. I've had all different types of guests. I've had people who philanthropy is a broad word. It doesn't just mean giving money. It can mean giving of time. It can mean giving advice. So I've had a broad, it's called the JPP, the Jewish Philanthropy Podcast. So it's been more focused in the Jewish community, but I've been interviewing people who do what I do, who are development professionals. I've interviewed people who just kind of have cool careers and have done interesting things. I had a professional sports agent. I had a big PR executive, advertising executive, men, women. So it's constantly evolving, and it's something I had a lot of fun with. It's easy to do, and it's a great tool. In fact, it's been distracting from my writing because I've been spending so much time interviewing and others. That becomes a space. So it's balancing, but both are meaningful. And yeah, it's great. I think that. You've been doing it successfully for a while. It's a great medium.
It is a great medium. I've got a long way to go. Ask me in 5 years' time what I may have learned and how I may have grown. I'm not too sure where it might take me, but I am intrigued to find out. But
I'll tell you also, just did some research recently. There are over 1 million podcasts and growing in the world today. I mean, when I get in my car, as many, like, we don't listen to the radio anymore. It's like on demand. You listen to whatever you want to listen to. And it's incredible. I find by the day, even in my own unique little Jewish world, the podcasts are growing by the day. It's just people are picking up on it. It's still early, even though it's so large. It's just growing and growing and growing.
And you know what? There's 1 million today. If there's what I hope that there'll be more down the line. The reason why I say this is because one of the things which is it's most probably not true, but it feels like it is true, is the art of conversation, being able to talk from one point of view and someone talk from another point of view, coming together, having a civil conversation without screaming, shouting, like calling people names left, right, and center, and and then ending up both sides like going, that person's a freaking idiot. I think that needs to come back into our world to just basically make it a lot more civil, because right now, the way we're going, it seems like we're going off the rails, don't know where it might end up, but through the power of conversation, and people go, some people might say, talk is cheap. I say no, like great ideas, thinking, philosophy comes from conversation, it's like the sort of birthing of two ideas, comes up with something completely different, and that basically takes civilization on to the next step. Without conversation, we're nothing more than apes in a tree. That's all I've got to simply say. You might disagree with me, but
no, I actually agree with you. I mean, if you think about it, so much of the world is driven now by social media. whichever platform may be your platform of choice, people are anyway interacting, but they're interacting in a way where they're not seeing each other face to face. They're not hearing the voice of the other person. So this is a medium where you can communicate, but you can communicate more in depth. And there are different ways to do it, obviously. And everybody has different approaches. And some people have guests on their podcast. Some people go solo. Some people have bigger followings. People have smaller followings. It's not really important. The idea is that it's another medium of, I think what you're saying is very profound in the sense that I don't think we would ever have met. How would we cross paths? We seemingly are coming from different worlds. We live on different sides of the ocean. Yeah. And yet we've had a very lovely conversation, and I'm sure a lot more connects us and binds us than divides us. And I think that many people, we live in such a fractured world. Certainly American society today is really more fractured than I ever remember it. I shouldn't really speak for the world at large, but we're living in challenging times on many, many fronts. Social justice, politics, the health crisis. More conversation, I think, is helpful, and listening and genuinely hearing the other's perspective is something that's very, very valuable and can help us as a society and help us as individuals.
I agree. So if I this is where I invoke my superpower. Now, if I could fulfill one wish for you, to happen over the next, say, 3 years, what would that wish be?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I think, I don't know how practical it is. I think that, my wife and I often talk about going back to the promised land, to Israel, to live there, to move there, to get back there, the place where we met and where we began our lives together. We'd like to do that, not when we're old and crickety, but kind of more in the present. There are a lot of practical reasons that make that very difficult. First amongst them is, our kids are of age right now where it's really would be difficult for them. They're in schools, they're already in high school, relationships, friendships, etc. And there are financial pressures, there are obligations, etc. But if something miraculous could happen for us, if I won the lottery tomorrow or something dramatically changed in our lives, I would very much love to pick up my family and put down roots in Israel. I have 2 siblings that live in Israel. My wife has 3 siblings that live in Israel. Her mom lives in Israel. It's the Jewish homeland. It's a place where we feel, even though we feel very welcome here in America, and America has been a great country to the Jewish people, and even though there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, of late, but, I'd say, again, for the most part, it's been a very, very comfortable place for us to live, but at the same time, it's not really, really home. And to be able to turn that dream into reality would be, I'm confident it will happen at some stage, but if it could happen sooner rather than later, I think that would take some kind of super magic powers as you're describing. So if it's yours or somebody else's, whoever's it is, I'll put that out there. We'll see what happens.
And what part of Israel would you look to live?
So I'm open in that regard. I don't want to be too, beggars can't be choosers, or how they say. But I don't want to be too particular. But Jerusalem is our favorite. I mean, to be able to live in the heart of the capital, to be able to live kind of, close to the places that are of greatest sanctity, the Western Wall that we talked about earlier. I think that would be incredible, but I wouldn't be, again, if somebody said you have to live in the suburbs, I wouldn't, we'd work it out, you know what I'm saying?
Brilliant. Yes, it must be an hour. Let's see. Do I have another question for you, I wonder? Do you have a question for myself, or is there anything I can answer? Because I have been asking questions of you all day. You might as well see if I can answer a question or two.
Tell me how you got into podcasting. Tell me kind of why you've chosen this medium, what you're trying to accomplish with this show, what the impact has been. What have you seen?
Okay. Now, reason why I got into podcasting, like, it's twofold actually. I'm the type of person which, like, I watch YouTube or observe things, and like I see people talk about social media, how it can help with businesses, basically how podcasts can help with this, doing blogs, doing this, doing that. Uh, One of my friends, Steve Ball, he basically is kicking off a sort of fitness side hustle, and he's like busy on YouTube doing that now. But a few months ago, around about this time last year, I was like, yeah, you should do a podcast. And it was like, oh yeah, so what have you done about that? And I was so I was basically doing a lot of saying, like, you should do this, you should do that, and not a lot of doing. And like, this is the thing I thought about. It was like, okay, yeah, do a podcast. I was like, I've started out doing just me talking to the mic with my sultry voice, going, yes, this is me ready to be. Let me tell, like, giving out a motivational talk here and there. But it's like one of those things that was not really sort of helping me in a sense to sort of grow, get better, because what happens, and like, you most already know this as well, as you start out life, you meet new people every damn day, pretty much. New person, new person, new person. That continues through like your senior school, like high school age, still continues on in like your college age, then around about late 20s, but especially sort of early 30s, like maybe a little bit sooner, because in the Jewish community you get married a little bit earlier. That life kicks in, and people are having their kids and doing this, and you start to meet less and less new people, to a point where you've got this solid crew of people which you like, oh, they're going to be your ride and die people, and you're not really sort of increasing or learning from other people. Podcasting for me has been pretty much a godsend with regards to that, because it forces me out of my comfort zone, and I talk to people through a whole variety of like different places to learn for myself, and hopefully that knowledge I can pick up, some people can pick up other knowledge when they listen to my podcast. It's like, there is like the learning for myself, that's the selfish part for me. But the whole thing is, hopefully there's enough what can get out there where people can actually pick up and learn and get a little bit more knowledge on their side. So this is the reason why I'm not just focused in, say, on marketing or architecture. Like, I want to basically be able to speak to everyone. I don't want any restrictions. And like, it might not mean I will have the most popular podcast in the world. It's not about that. It's about what I can learn, how I can enrich my life and others through conversation. And this is the reason why I feel it's important to me, but I hopefully that's important to other people out there. I might be completely wrong, but you know.
No, that's beautiful. How do you go about getting people? How do you go about educating people about the medium? How do you teach people that you have a podcast? How do you get people to tune in, to subscribe? It's something that I always think about. How do you get people to engage with it?
Now, this is the thing. Like, I'm going to tell. Like, right now, it's sound like I use metaphors quite a lot. It's about getting my reps in. So getting as many people on as possible. And then basically, like, yeah, if it wasn't for the global pandemic, I might be sort of maybe 30 episodes behind. Like, it's just allowed me to have that extra time.
Right.
Yeah. So like, this is the thing. I've been put on furlough over here. So while I'm on furlough, make as much use of this time. If you haven't been affected by the disease, like the virus out there, the pandemic, none of your family's been taken down by it, and you're just sitting down chilling, like people are missing out on an absolutely unique moment of time where they've got all that time given back to them in some regards. So make the most of it. So that's what I'm
right
now.
I think that's very admirable. I think it's a great message. And I still have my normal stuff going on for better or worse, but I've also been trying to take time to really, like my podcast kind of stalled for a while, and then because of the pandemic, it's kind of built up some momentum again, and it's been a great thing. It's been fun.
Yeah, but you're back on it, and that's a good thing. Like what I'd simply say is like, yeah, like maybe one of the strategies I might do is, as well as this podcast channel, I might have a smaller YouTube channel talking about what the sort of challenges have been for me and the sort of day-to-day, like, triumph, strife, and basically all the ups and downs which come with it. But yeah, when we are allowed to meet people, I'll do some more podcasts, hopefully more sort of face-to-face. Because
That's fun. That's great. Yeah, if you could do that, that's really cool. Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I'm not too sure what it is, but it's like the secret sauce which comes with that. It's great doing this, but I think it's even better when you're with someone.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah, but like, yes, watch this space. Hopefully big things.
I'm gonna keep following. Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm gonna share. You know, when we get this out there, we'll get this to my network too. So we'll try to build some base. You know.
Excellent. Can you tell the lovely people out there how they can actually get hold of you over the social medias and such?
Yeah, sure. The easiest way is my website. It's rabbidovidmcohen.com, rabbidovidmcohen.com. My website has links to all my social media channels. It has access to my book, my podcast. So it's really a central site where you can find me in all the different mediums. And I would love to get to know people, interact with people. If I could be valuable or helpful in any way, so feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. What I'll do as well, I'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can find you there. No problem. David, I've got to say thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, buddy. It was great. Thank you so much. Great meeting you. Good luck. Continued success with all that you're doing. Okay? Keep up the great work.
I will. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's watching out there, to my friends, my life warriors. Stay safe, stay well, be excellent, be cool, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys.
Awesome. Be well.
And we are